Hey everyone, so I wanted to hop on here really quickly because I've been getting this question a lot, and that is, how in the world do I get under contract, or how do I get my buyers under contract? I'm getting a lot of agent calls in this crazy market. So for those of you who don't know, you might be living under a rock if you don't know, the real estate world is totally crazy right now. There is no inventory. The number of houses available on the market is like smaller than it's ever been, and I can do a separate video as to the reasons for that. There are several different factors. It's a perfect storm, but we are in a crazy seller's market right now. So if you've been hearing now's the time to sell, there's a good reason for that. Sellers are getting top dollar. They're getting basically whatever they want for their houses, and buyers are really fighting to get homes under contract. So that's what this video is going to be about. Okay, so market's crazy. I have thankfully been able to get all of my buyers under contract who have taken my advice. And so I'm getting lots of calls from other real estate agents who are saying, what are you doing to get your buyers under contract? I've been working with a buyer for 6 months and we can't find anything. So there are, like with everything, there are strategies that you can use to get your buyer under contract in this crazy market. Now, it's not going to work every single time, but I've had a lot of success with it. And most of my buyers are under contract within 2 to 3 weeks. Which is amazing in this market. So I'm going to go through some of the strategies. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM. And that goes for whether you're looking to buy a house, you're thinking of selling your house, or if you're an agent, because I love to help other agents in this crazy time. So number one, first things first is finding the house. So one of the issues is that a lot of the houses, by the time that they hit Zillow or some of those other websites, they're already under contract. So one thing that's really important is to see off-market properties that haven't been listed yet, and see properties the day that they come on the market. So for me personally, I network with a lot of other agents to find out what's coming soon. I have a really good reputation in the real estate world, which is something I knew nothing about until I got into real estate. How important that is, because if you do have a good reputation and you have relationships with other agents, they will send you their listings before they hit the market and say, hey April, I have this new listing coming up. I would love to work with you. Bring me a buyer. So you can find out about things before they hit the market. So that's really important. If you find something that has just hit the market, it's really important that you see it the same day or within 24 hours, because things are going under contract like that. So for me personally, I have showing a So if I'm not available to show a house, I have lots of other people that can take you and show you the house so that you don't miss out. So just having that resource is really important. So one thing that's happening too is there are a lot of part-time agents, and I totally have mad respect for people that can balance real estate and another career. But one thing that they're running into is that they are not available to show the houses until like a day or 2 days later. And unfortunately, those houses are already under contract at that time. So it's really important that if you're working with an agent and they aren't necessarily as available as you would like them to be, that they're working with a team or they have someone that can show you the house, because you literally have a day or two to go see a property and write an offer before it's gone. So one thing that you need to do is find an agent that has relationships with other agents, that's able to find all market properties for you, and somebody that has really good relationships. Another thing I didn't know, in the real estate world, reputation matters, and who your agent knows matters. So there are times when there are multiple offers on a property and you may have 3 offers that are exactly the same. And if the person who's listing the house, who's helping the seller sell the house, knows this agent and doesn't know these other 2 agents, they will go with this offer. They'll say, listen, I know this agent, they're experienced, they know what they're talking about, they're working with a really good lender, they're going to get us to the closing table, and they will direct their seller to take that offer over the other 2 offers, even if all the terms are the same. So working with an agent that has that reputation, that has that experience, that has that network with other agents is so important. So that's number 1. Okay, so number 2, I think this is number 2, is working with the right lender. So I'm pretty listing heavy. I primarily work with sellers, but I do work with buyers as well. And one thing that I'm always looking for is the lender. So the lender is the one that kind of holds everything together. They're so crucial in the transaction. A lot of contracts fall apart due to things that happen on the lender side. So as a listing agent, our goal is not only to get the best price for our sellers, the best terms for our sellers, but it's to get the contract to the closing table. So lender's really important. So if I'm working with, or if I'm looking at offers, I'm looking for a lender that has a really good reputation in the area, preferably somebody that I've worked with before or a company that I've worked with before. And there are certain lenders that we try to avoid. So I don't want to name names as far as lenders that you don't want to work with, but if you go on the internet and you type in, I'd like to get a mortgage.com, I mean, not really, but if you're Googling getting a mortgage and there's like a 1-800 number and then people start calling you and it's like one of those internet companies who I'm not going to name, a lot of the times if I see that as a listing agent, I'm like, no, we don't want to work with that company. And it's only because they have a bad reputation. A lot of them are working 9 to 5. They're not working nights. They're not working weekends. You're working with multiple different people. And they're like, that's not my department. That's not my department. It's just a disaster. I've worked with them before. It's not great. Another thing that you would think would be a good thing is working with a bank. A lot of people want to go to the bank, the person that they bank with. So one of the big branches, and they say, well, I have a checking account with them, so that's who I want to work with. But those people, a lot of times I don't know where it cut me off, but again, a lot of those people are working 9 to 5. They're not working nights. They're not working weekends. So you would think a big bank would be a great person to go with, but as a listing agent, we'd rather work with a mortgage broker, a mortgage specialist, instead of one of the big banks. Another thing is a lot of times those big banks have a reputation for closing late, delayed closings, which is never fun whenever all parties are kind of waiting for that closing date. So that's one thing that I would suggest is, talk to your agent. A lot of times agents will suggest a preferred lender, and there's a reason for that. When I bought my first house, bless her heart, my poor agent, she had suggested a lender, and I said, no, I'm just going to go with my community bank. I know them. They know me. And my whole transaction almost fell apart. It was a nightmare. Closing got delayed. It was a disaster. And I wish that I would have just listened to my agent. She was the expert, but I thought I knew better because that was my bank. And I realized why she suggested a mortgage specialist instead of a bank. So lender really matters. And in addition to picking the lender, you also are picking a good lender. And I would ask your agent because they should be able to give you a good recommendation. Okay, so when it comes to lending, another factor is really important. Look at your pre-approval letter. If it says you've been pre-qualified, you want that to say you've been fully pre-approved. Even better, you've been fully or mostly underwritten by the lender. So a lot of people don't know the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. So when you're looking to buy a house, the lender is going to run your credit and give you a pre-qualification based on your credit score. Okay, based on your credit score, what you put in the application, you're pre-qualified for this. As a listing agent, what we're looking for is a pre-approval, which means not only have they run your credit, but they have all of your documents, whether it's your paycheck stubs, your tax forms, all of that. I'm calling the lender to find out, do we have bank statements? Do we have tax documents? Do you have everything that you need? Have they already been put in underwriting? So all of those are going to make your offer stronger. And those are things the general public usually doesn't know. But the further along you are in the process, the better chance that you have. Even better if your lender calls the listing agent on a house that you've written an offer on and tells them why you're an excellent buyer. Your agent should be doing this too. My buyer's fantastic. They've already been through the full pre-approval process. The lender already has the documents. They have a steady job. The agent should be selling, your buyer's agent should be selling the listing agent on why you're a great buyer, and your lender should be calling the listing agent to do the same. A lot of lenders don't do that, and that can be the difference between you getting the house and you missing out. Okay, so speaking of the lender, your type of loan really matters right now. So the best thing that you can do is have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cash to buy a house because cash is king. That is not most people. If that is not you, conventional is the best. So presented with multiple offers, if we have a conventional loan on the table and an FHA loan on the table, conventional is going to win every single time because it's just a stronger type of loan. So there's lots of different reasons for that. But if you have the choice between going conventional or FHA, definitely go conventional because that's going to win over an FHA. If you have any questions about different loan products, just let me know because I can do a whole different video on that. So the more money that you're putting down, the better. Conventional loan products are really good. But FHA, unfortunately, is not winning in most multiple offer situations. So it's really, really hard for FHA buyers right now, which is really unfortunate because another tip is do not ask for closing costs. So This market is really hard for buyers that don't have the funds to pay for their down payment and their closing costs because a lot of sellers are not paying for any of buyer closing costs. Unfortunately, this is not the market where we can try to negotiate some closing costs for the buyer. A lot of times we're competing with 20 other people, especially in certain price points. So if at all possible, pay for your own closing costs. Don't ask the seller for any closing costs just because it's going to weaken your offer. So most people don't know this, but if you don't have all of the funds that you need for your closing costs, depending on the type of loan and depending on your situation, a lot of times the lender can bump up the interest rate just a smidge and give you some money to go towards closing costs so that you're not having to ask the seller for that. So definitely get with your lender, see if that's an option. Interest rates are historically low, so even if they bump up the interest, that may not make a huge difference in your payment, but it could be the difference between you getting the house under contract and them going with another offer. So try not to ask for any closing costs. If you need closing costs, you may want to save up a little bit more before you go shopping in this market. So another thing that I highly recommend is that you write a very clean offer. What do I mean by clean offer? So whenever you're writing up the offer, there's a little box called special stips, special stipulations. In previous markets, this is where we would ask for a home warranty, we'd ask them to leave the appliances, we would ask for a clear termite letter, you name it. In previous markets, we would ask for those little things. In this market, it is not, there's my cat. In this market, it is not worth losing a house over a $500 home warranty. Just get the warranty yourself if you really want to have a home warranty. Do the termite inspection yourself. Leave that box blank, because if an agent sees a whole list of requests and two offers are pretty similar and one is asking for a lot, guess who's gonna win? So another thing that we're seeing in this market, or another issue that we're having, is appraisals. So we have a market where most buyers are offering full price for a house or even over full price for a house. So we're seeing a lot of over asking offers, especially whenever it's multiple offers, which is basically every house in this market. So one thing that you can do to strengthen your offer is to waive your appraisal completely. Or if you feel like the house is worth it and it's priced appropriately, or to agree to make up for a low appraisal by bringing cash to closing. I only recommend that people do this if you're planning on being in that house for several years. So if you think that there's any possibility that you could move within the next year to 3 years, I don't recommend that you walk into a house underwater that you may have to turn around and sell in a couple of years. But if you think you're going to be there for a long period of time, then it may be a good idea to do some of these strategies. So one thing that most people don't know is if you are putting 20% down or more on a house, your lender may be able to waive your appraisal completely. So what they do is they take the address of the home, they run it through their system, they take into consideration what you're offering for the house, what they think the house is worth, how much money you're putting down, and you may have the ability to totally waive the appraisal. So you don't even have to do an appraisal on the property. You of course want to consult with your real estate agent, make sure that the house is not grossly overpriced, and make sure you're making a good investment. But that is something, if you're able to waive that appraisal, that is something that is going to definitely push your offer to the top. And again, you want to take into consideration how long you're going to be in the home, because I never recommend that you put yourself in a bad situation. But if the house is worth it to you and you're going to be there for a while, that's a great strategy. So this is more for real estate agents than for buyers, but if you're a real estate agent and you're trying to get your buyer under contract, never send over an offer without calling the agent. I am always surprised, like shocked, at the number of times that I receive offers and I don't hear a peep from the agent. That kind of sets the tone for how they're going to be in a transaction, in my opinion. And it makes such a big difference to hear from the agent and hear, my buyer's great, I'm easy to work with, here's the contract. Did you get the contract? I'll never forget the time that I had a property, we went under contract, and I got a text message from an agent that said something along the lines of, did you get our offer? I just want to make sure you got our offer. We were already under contract at that point. I had not gotten the offer and never heard a peep from the agent. She never let me know that an offer was coming. I guess she forgot to send it or it got stuck in her inbox. Never got it. So always, always, always call the listing agent. And I want to comment on two strategies that used to work in previous markets that aren't working so much in this market, but agents that are not constantly working in the market and don't have a pulse on the market, unfortunately, they don't know, right? Unless you're doing this all day, every day, you're not aware of the fact that the market has changed, the different nuances. So I see a lot of agents that don't sell as many houses, making these mistakes. So the first thing is an escalation clause. So escalation clauses are basically special stipulations that you can write into the contract saying, my buyer is willing to pay $200 for the house. However, if there's another offer that's higher than ours, we're willing to go up to X number of dollars, 205, 210, whatever the case may be. So the purpose of an escalation clause, and they're perfectly fine, but the purpose of an escalation clause is my buyer wants to pay X number of dollars for the house, but we don't want to have to pay more than we need to. So we're going to offer you this, but we'll go higher if there's another offer on the table. So what's happening is agents are getting like 20 offers on a home. So if there are 2 offers and one has an escalation clause that says, we're going to offer you 200, but we're willing to go up to 210. And then you have another offer that's 210, they're going to go with this one every time. They don't want to have to deal with an escalation clause. They weren't willing to go up to 210 from the beginning. They're wanting to start at 200. You're having to go back and forth. You're having to send them a copy of the other offers so that they can escalate their offer. So it just makes for a less clean offer. Remember where we talked about clean offers? So escalation clauses were great in other markets. Right now, they kind of weaken your offer a lot of the time. So another strategy that used to be very effective that is not nearly as effective now is a personalized letter. It's a perfectly good thing to write a letter to the seller, let them know how much you love their house. I love your backyard. What you've done with the kitchen is beautiful. However, this market is so crazy that sometimes we're getting 20 offers. Sellers aren't even looking at them half the time. If we have 3 offers and one of them comes with a letter, that might make a difference. But if you've got a property where there's 10, 20, 30, 40 offers, that letter is getting buried. The seller's just looking at terms at that point. And as agents, I mean, we're just doing spreadsheets of this is how much you're going to net. So they're not going through all those letters. So that's a strategy that's perfectly fine. A lot of people still use it. Some agents don't like it because they worry about fair housing, which is a legitimate concern. But that is not going to be the make or break a lot of the times for you to get the house. It's definitely worth. So doing all of those things is going to be far, far more important than writing a letter in the current market that we're in. So I hope these tips were helpful. I have so much more advice. I could go on forever about this. This is like I'm eating, breathing, sleeping real estate right now and this crazy market. But I've gotten this question so many times. I've seen it in so many Facebook groups, people asking, what do I do to get under contract in this market? There's so many buyers that are just spinning their wheels. So I thought that this might be helpful. Another thing I would like to add is I've also seen people in Facebook groups saying like, I don't know about my agent. I'm not able to get under contract. Maybe I should hire someone else. I promise you, most of the agents out there are working their tail off to get you a house under contract. So if you're not getting under contract right away, it's not necessarily your agent's fault. It's a crazy market. So if you have any questions about buying a house, selling a house, investing in real estate, or anything else, I'm happy to help. Whether you're a buyer, you're a seller, you're just curious, you're a real estate agent, I am happy to help other agents navigate through this crazy, crazy market in these crazy times. And we're just praying that as spring comes, we'll have more inventory, we'll have more houses, and eventually this will kind of settle down. But for now, enjoy the craziness.